the adjudication machinery. Now, adjudication machinery has got three parts, as we have said earlier. It is labor court, industrial tribunal, and national tribunal. This happens to be the ultimate remedy available within the industrial relations system. And the first one in the series is called labor court, which deals with the first schedule of the ID Act appendix that is given. And this talks about all matters listed in the first schedule that is appended to the ID Act of 1947. Now, a labor court consists of one person only, that is the person who would be heading labor court is one who is normally a sitting or an ex-judge of a high court, right? So the person must have been heading an high court. It may be constituted by the appropriate government for adjudication of dispute which are mentioned in the second schedule of the Act. The matters that is listed in the second schedule of the Act is the propriety and legality of an order passed by employer under Standing Orders Act of 1946. Any order pertaining to this thing, that is, an order was passed under the Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act of 1946 by the employer, and if the issue of legality or propriety of this order comes up, it will be taken up by the labor court. The second thing that comes up is the application and interpretation of standing orders. Now, there are standing orders that is part of it, and that is standing order. If there is any problem with the standing order, then it will be dealt with by this particular act. Just let me allow a few people more. I think they are in the waiting. Is it visible? Is this slide visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
The third point is the discharge and dismissal of workmen and grant of relief to them. Any employee who has been, discharged or dismissed from their job, they will be that will be taken up by the labor court. Withdrawal of any statutory concessions or privilege. Statutory concessions are those which we have been given to the employee as per the act of the government. That will be statutory, and if it has been stopped, then that matter will be taken up by the labor court. Illegality or otherwise of any strike or lockout. Now, once a person goes on a strike, and if the issue is that is it legal or illegal. Now, if 14 days notice has not been given or the strike is not peaceful, whereas the employer says it is illegal, whereas the employee says it is legal, this matter will be decided by the labor court. All matters not specified in the third schedule of Industrial Disputes Act 1947, and it deals with jurisdiction of industrial tribunal. Right? So that is as far as your labor court is concerned. Now, it is a quasi-judicial body, as we know. Therefore, the process will be similar to the courts of law that it follows. That is, a matter has to be submitted to the labor court. It will ask for the appearance of witnesses, that they will be examined and cross-examined. Any other document that is required will be asked for by the court, and then it will give a judgment, right? This court will give a judgment which will be binding on the parties. The second body in this series is called Industrial Tribunal. Now, a labor court, an industrial tribunal is like a labor court. Industrial tribunal is also headed by one person only. The matters which falls within the jurisdiction of industrial tribunal are as mentioned in the second schedule or the third schedule. So anything that remained unresolved in the second schedule and all matters that is listed in this third schedule will form the jurisdiction of industrial tribunal. An industrial tribunal, in addition to presiding officer, can have two assessors which can be appointed by the appropriate government. Now these the matters which will be taken up by the industrial tribunals as listed in the third schedule. We said all matters that remains unresolved in the from the first schedule, and all matters that is listed in the third schedule. The list is as follows: wages including the period and mode of payment. That is, if cash is check is prescribed, it was paid cash, or it's a bank transfer today, it is no longer cash or checks. It has to be a direct debit into the bank account of the person. Therefore, this position has come up. And if it is a central government employee, today it is not even the institutions which will do the salaries. It will be directly by the RBI. Now, therefore, this question does not really arise in case of the central government employee, but for the industrial workers, it does matter. Compensatory and other allowances that was to be paid if there is a dispute, hours of work and rest intervals that is there, the lunch breaks and so on and so forth, leave with wages and holidays. There are certain wages leave which are paid leaves, whereas there are holidays which are paid holidays, but if there is a dispute on this matter. Bonus, profit sharing, provident fund and gratuity issues are also taken up by the industrial tribunal. Shift working otherwise not agreed to in accordance with the standing orders will be taken up by the industrial tribunal. Rule of discipline that has been prescribed, we have already gone through, that will be taken up by the industrial tribunal. Rationalization of work is also part of the industrial tribunal. The retrenchment, that is, an employee has been retrenched from their job, if they are no longer considered as an employee, will be taken up by the labor court, industrial tribunal. And any other matter that is not prescribed but referred to it by the appropriate government will be taken up by the industrial tribunal. Any matter that may be prescribed or is referred to by the appropriate government will be taken up by the industrial tribunal. The highest level remedy available is called national tribunal. The central government, see, up till now, labor court and industrial tribunal, we said appropriate government appoints, constitutes it and appoints the person on the body. National tribunal is a body, as the word national indicates. It is the jurisdiction of the central government, who may constitute a national tribunal for adjudication of disputes as mentioned in the second and third schedule of the Act, or any other matter not mentioned therein in these two schedules. Now, it also looks at questions of national importance, or the industrial dispute is such that the undertakings established in more than one state of the country. Now, and it is affecting the states, that the matter will be taken up by the national tribunal. In nutshell, we will say it is all matters listed in the first, second and third schedule, and all matters of national importance, matters that pertains to industries which are located in more than one state, and the dispute is affecting more than one state, that will be taken up by the national tribunal. Now, national importance matters would be if there is an emergency situation, that is aggression from outside, there is a war that has occurred, or there is an economic emergency or there is a grave economic crisis that has taken root, the matters will be taken up by the National Tribunal. Now, the central government may appoint two assessors to assist the National Tribunal. The award of tribunal is to be submitted to the central government, which has the power to modify or reject if it is considers it necessary in the public interest. So earlier ones were not submitted to the central government. It should be noted that every award of a labor court, industrial tribunal or national tribunal must be published by the appropriate government within 30 days of the date of its receipt in the official gazette, unless declared otherwise by the appropriate government. Every award shall come into force on expiry of 30 days from the date of publication and shall remain in operation for a period of 1 year thereafter. It is not for all time to come. So this is what we have as far as the settlement machinery is concerned. And now the other topic that we will look at is called topic we will take is called trade union. Right. What is a trade union? A trade union is an organization of workers acting collectively who seek to protect and promote their mutual interests through collective bargaining. Right? What it is? The trade union is an organization of workers. This is the first thought. They are acting collectively and who seek to protect and promote their mutual interests through collective bargaining, right? So this is what we call as a trade union. Now, Trade Unions Act in India was passed in 1926. According to this act, trade union means any combination, whether temporary or permanent, formed primarily for the purpose of regulating the relations between workmen and employers, or between workmen and workmen, or between employers and employers, or for imposing restrictive conditions on the conduct of any trade or business is referred to as trade union. The most widely quoted definition that we know has been given by the British labor historian, husband and wife. Their names were Beatrice Webb and Sidney Webb, and it was given in their book called History of Trade Unions. Now, this trade union, the book was published in 1920, and they defined trade union as a continuous association of wage earners for the purpose of maintaining and improving the conditions of their working lives. Now, the trade unions are voluntary associations formed for the pursuit of protecting the common interest of its members and also promote welfare. Now, this is, as we know, is a voluntary association. This is not given in the statute at all. So, the objective of trade union is primarily to protect the interest of workers against discrimination and unfair labor practices, right? Now, it ensures security of workers, which involves continued employment of workers, prevent retrenchment, layoff or lockouts, restrict applications of fire or dismissal or discharge of VRS. This fire is when an employee is fired from the organization. All right. Now, the second objective is that this involves wage hike at periodic intervals. Other admissible allowances, subsidized canteen and transport facilities. Third is that it secures power to influence management. This involves workers' participation in management, decision-making role of unions in policy decisions affecting workers and staff members. But mind it, this has to be a recognized trade union who would be participating in the collective bargaining process. Unrecognized unions are not going to be part of any policy. It was also to secure power to influence government that we have. It involves influencing the government to pass labor legislation which improves working condition, safety, welfare, security, and retrenchment henceforth of workers and their dependents seek redressal of grievances as and when needed. This is being done from time to time. Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. बताइए. Hello. Now, the function of trade union is as under to ensure fair wage for workers, to safeguard security of tenure and improve conditions, to enlarge opportunities for promotion and training, to improve working and living conditions, to provide for educational, cultural, and recreational facilities, to cooperate in a facilitate technological advances by broadening the understanding of workers and on its understanding. Right? So these are the issues that will be taken up as a function. Then we also have to promote identity and interest of the workers in their industry, to offer responsive cooperation in improving levels of production and productivity, discipline, high standards of quality as given in the program of the organization. And it is also to promote individual and collective welfare, and that is there. Now, as we said earlier, that trade unions are formed as per the Trade Unions Act of 1926, but that is confined to the registration of trade union and not the recognition of trade union. And we said the recognition and rights of trade union is given in the Appendix A and B of the Industrial Disputes Act of 1947. Now, any 7-person or more members of trade union may be subscribing their names to the rules of the trade union and by otherwise complying with the provisions of this act with respect to registration, apply for registration of the trade union under this act. In simple terms, if 7-person or more can get together, they give a name to the trade union, they give a registered office address for the trade union, and they can apply to the registrar for registration of trade union. Now, these 7 members will be, including the office bearers, would be the president, vice president, and secretary of the trade union, and 4 members. The application for registration should ensure that every application for registration of trade union shall be made to registrar and shall be accompanied by a copy of rules of trade unions and a statement of the following particulars. That is the name, occupation, and address of the members making the application. So it is not anybody who can apply it. It is the person who are working in the industry. The name of the trade union and the address of its head office where it is going to be located. The title, names, age, address, and occupation of the office bearers of the trade union, the 3 office bearers that I mentioned. It further said that where a trade union has in existence for more than 1 year before making an application for its registration, these shall be delivered to the registrar together with the application, a general statement of assets, liabilities, so on and so forth, so that that is included in this particular process. Now, the shortcomings of trade union are that trade unions in India are having uneven growth. We said there is no organized growth that has taken place, as a result of which we have got more than 50,000 unions. The unions are concentrated in large scale industry sector and in big industrial centers, and not in the everywhere. There is very little trade union activity in a small sector, agricultural, labor, and domestic sector. Trade unionism has touched only a portion of the working class in India, right? We also talk about the size of the trade union. Because of the sheer number, we find that average trade union membership is very, very small compared to the Western world. There is weak financial position of these trade unions. The average yearly income of union is very low and inadequate, as a member for subscription has to pay even today 5 rupees a month, and that is not collected at source if they are not a recognized trade union. And 5 rupees doesn't make much of a sense in today's environment. Therefore, what we find is that since the amount is very less, and number 2, the subscription amount is not paid on a regular basis, therefore their financial position is very, very weak. And political leadership, the outside leadership that is there, everybody who wish to gain political mileage, they become president and secretary and other members of the union, even if they are not working in the industry. And as a result of which, they always look for their political gains rather than the help to the union members. There are multiplicity of trade union. The same person are member of more than one trade union, because there is no restriction on person moving from one union to another and becoming part of it. Further, their ideological conflicts are also there, and therefore the union seceded from one and formed another union which are there. There are also problems of recognition, as we know, for the trade unions. Therefore, it is weak. The absence of paid office bearers. Office bearers are not paid employees. Therefore, they hardly take an interest. They have to work and earn their bread. Therefore, there is a problem of office bearers. And the members' apathy is also majority of workers do not take keen interest in the union activity because of their economic conditions. Opposition from employers are also there, because employers do not want these unions to thrive, and there is always a rivalry between these two. Sometimes the employers side one union and make a rival of the other union that is also been there, by instigating the two unions to fight so that they can thrive. Inter-union rivalry is also there. Within the union there are, between the two unions there are rivalry, and there are intra-union rivalries as well which are there. In India, there are too many small unions instead of one large union. This reduces the bargaining power of the union. The small trade unions do have conflict of interest, and Indian political parties support some large trade unions. This politicizes them, and politicization of means compromise with workers' interest that is there. And if you look at today, every large party has got a union. So BJP has got a union called Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh, which was earlier known as Hindustan Mazdoor Sabha. We have got Congress, which has got Indian Trade Union Congress, which is there, and these left parties has got their own unions in the form of CPI and CPIM. So all major unions in India are associated to one or the other political parties. Most of the labor force are uneducated or less educated. There are lack of education among labor force leading to improper representation of the workforce. And there are unregistered unions. They do not get protection to civil and criminal liabilities. The trade unions does not apply to informal sectors. A large section of workforce is not represented in the trade union, as we said, agriculture and other sector workers. Trade unions are often under tremendous financial burden, and this means that they do not function in their full potential which are there. Now there are trade union federations. The members, the trade unions have to be part of one or the other federation. These are apex bodies at the national level, or trade unions like craft union, industrial unions, and general union become member of these federations which are there. And the central trade unions as federation help smaller unions support at national level and address their causes. These are some of the major trade union federations and the year of formation and the membership in terms of lakhs. So we have got ATAC, the earliest union that was formed in India, called All India Trade Union Congress, that was formed in 1920, as we mentioned, in order to send their representative to ILO in Geneva when it was formed. The second was called INTUC, Indian National Trade Union Congress. This was a party which seceded from ATAC in 1947 after we got independence, and it has got the largest membership of 55 lakhs. Then we had Mazdoor Sabha, which was formed in 1948 with 45 lakh members. Bharatiya Mazdoor Sabha, BMS, has got 41 lakh membership formed in 55. Then Hind Mazdoor Kisan Parishad was formed in 62, has got 16 lakh membership. C2, that is Center of Trade Union Congress, formed in 70, has got 24 lakh members. And UTUC, that is United Trade Union Congress, formed in 71, has got 8 lakh membership. So this is as far as the trade unions are concerned. We have got trade union federations which has got all unions becoming part of this particular trade union. And as we know, the cause is very, very noble, but they have failed to really deliver as per the requirement of the trade unions which are there. Right. This is all for today as far as your fourth unit is concerned. And now what we need to know, that is, if you have any question in the settlement machinery or in the trade unions, please feel free to ask. Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Any question that you have, please? No? Fine then, thank you. We'll meet tomorrow then. Thank you.